Welcome to Hot to Trot. This is not your normal horse racing podcast. I'm Ashley Eisenbiel.
And I'm Meadow Twaddle, and we're your hosts for Hot to Trot. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Hot to Trot. The summer is starting to wind down. We have one more big weekend coming up. PA Day at the Races, PA Derby, Masters, all happening in one weekend. We are actually filming this episode before that weekend, and it will be released after that weekend. So you might want to check back with us after and see how we're doing after that big weekend. There's a lot coming up. Hopefully we make it through.
We'll be recovering. That's why we're pre-recording this one. So it's ready. We'll be recovering.
Yeah, for sure. But after that, for the most part, stakes will be winding down. Fall is here. My house is decorated.
Me too.
Really? Oh,
I did
good.
it yesterday.
I'm glad we're not the only ones. I have my fall wardrobe coming out of the closet. My browns, tans, oranges, all of it. I'm ready for fall. Once it hits that switch between summer and fall, I'm all fall. I don't care about the warm weather anymore.
I currently have 3 pumpkin spice candles burning in my house. I already bought mums and planted them in their pots. I gotta go get pumpkins. I plan on doing that this weekend. And yeah, I got all my little fall decor and pumpkin spice signs up, and I'm feeling the fall. So
Do you
I love it. I love the sale season though right now.
Yes, Harrisburg sale, November 3rd through the 7th is coming up. There's a few mini sales happening. I think today there's one in Ohio, but we have our big sale of the season coming up, Harrisburg sale. I love the Harrisburg sale. The black
I love
book
getting the books. So right now is when you get the book. That's also how you know fall is here, is you get your black books in the mail, a big package, and you start looking at horses. So I'm ready. I'm ready for sale season. I'm ready for Breeders' Cup and Breeders' Crown. Now I get to watch that road, and we have a good idea, but I'm really excited this year. So
Yeah.
I love it. And also homecoming. My oldest son is now a junior. So
Has he made his homecoming sign yet for his girlfriend?
it's literally upstairs. We're doing the proposal tonight. So you guys are watching it tonight is the proposal for homecoming. It's happening. I don't know. It's a sign. It's a song. He's dressing up as a cowboy. I'll post pictures in here of them.
Yes.
She already got her dress. I mean, they've been together for a while. They've known each other since they were babies. So literally, he's dating my middle school best friend's daughter. So they've known each other since the womb. So it's kind of cool to see them go together. And they've been together since Halloween of last year. So
Yeah.
it's their first school dance because they're juniors.
My little brother is also asking his girlfriend tonight at the football game. They haven't been dating that long, but you know how young love is. You can't stop it.
How's he asking her?
He made a sign last night. We all huddled around the kitchen counter to help him. Some TikTok trend that's going on, like the Jet 2 holiday, whatever.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. Something to keep up with the times. But yes, he's asking her tonight as well. So
Did you have this trend of getting asked to dances? I didn't have this. A guy came up to you and you're lucky if he asked you. It was just prom, homecoming. Want to go? Do you have a date yet?
It was a big thing when I was in high school. There was the signs and the flowers and the big homecoming proposal. It was a big deal.
Man, it's so much pressure on these boys, man. Every year.
I know.
Girls just got to get a dress. Now these guys got to come up with these grandiose proposals that have to be videoed because her parents are coming here to watch it happen and video. It's just, I don't know, bigger deal than the dance.
I know. But let's talk a little bit about our guest today. We have Jeff Zidek, the race announcer at the Meadows. It was a great interview. He's a great announcer. He's a great staple to the Meadows. He's pretty much done it all. I mean, I just learned today he did photography. He's a bowling coach. He announces. He did PR. It sounds like he's covered all the bases. So
he worked for the commission and went to the fairs did the PR for the fairs. I didn't know that.
Me neither. Yeah, he's very well rounded in the sport. handicapper. He's very communicative. He loves to talk to the fans and the bettors, so feel free to reach out to him at any point. He loves to talk horses, but it was a great interview. I think he was a really great speaker.
Yeah,
I mean, rightfully so. He's in
well,
the know.
he is a communications major. You would think he'd be a good interview. So,
Yes.
no, Jeff's a great time. My favorite is when he calls races and, you get that sly deer at the Meadows that pop in and how he handles, that kind of stuff. Because out of all the announcers in PA, I think the most like unusual things can happen at the Meadows sometimes. And everyone's like, did you catch that call in that race, Jeff? Jeff handled it so well. I'm like, oh my gosh, he does. He does handle it very well. And he gets those little sly remarks in too.
Yeah. I mean, being stabled at the Meadows, we have a lot of wildlife I can tell you about. We've had deer, we've had coyotes, we've had geese, and Jeff has worked around all of it. We could pretty much have a zoo at this point, but he's done it all. So very excited for you guys to hear this conversation with him. Without further ado, here is our chat with Jeff Zidek. All right, Jeff Zidek, thank you so much for joining us here on Hot to Trot. I want to start at the beginning. You studied communications, am I right, at St. Vincent College. Shout out to St. Vincent College. I love it there. I've had several athletic camps there. That's where the Steelers do their summer preseason. It's a great school. So kind of talk about that and how that path led you into race announcing.
Well, yeah, I was a communication major, interested in broadcasting, and mostly actually was interested in public relations. And so right around the time that I started college was when the Meadows had their cable TV show, and it happened to expand into my neighborhood. So I started being able to watch the races from home. Now, I had been a fan of the races from when I was very, very small. My grandfather, he was a guy that we're going back into the 40s and 50s before simulcasting really existed. To see another track, you had to be there. And so he would just take off every year and he'd drive from Pennsylvania down, hit the tracks in Maryland and hit every track he could all the way down to Florida, Hialeah and back. And so he was really big into horse racing. So once a summer when I was really little, like 7 or 8 years old, 6 years old, our family would go with my grandfather down to the track. So I liked the Meadows originally, kind of forgot about it for a few years, but then when I started college, started seeing it on TV at my house and realized, hey, this is maybe a place where I could get an internship. And that's really all I was looking for was an internship, and it's turned into a life.
Wow, that's awesome. So tell us about like your first race call that you did and where it was and what was kind of going through your mind that day.
Well, I started my first race calls. We had what we then called baby races. They went for a purse of, I think it was $300. Now we just have 2-year-old qualifiers. And so it was the summer after I started working here in the fall of '87. And so then we get into the spring of '88 and the 2-year-olds are starting to race. And I had been doing, instead of the internship, but I ended up getting the internship. But that whole winter, right after I started working here, I was a PA announcer in-house, because back then, Roger's voice was really only heard on the TV broadcast. In-house, I did the post-praise, I did the order of finish, and you just heard Roger for the race call. So I ended up needing to, get that race announcing experience a little further down the road while I was doing my internship. And so he started out having me call the baby races. And then I remember he was going to take a night off. And so he started giving me like the last race of the night to call. And I think I called the 13th race one night. And then the very next night, I was in the chair calling all 13. And so it just kind of threw me to the wolves a little bit, so to speak. And really don't like listening back to those old race calls, but that's how it all started. It's been 36 years now.
So fast forward to now, what you do looks so effortless. It's just another walk in the park for you. But I'm sure there's a lot of prep that goes into announcing each day. So kind of take us through your day-to-day job as an announcer.
Oh, if my boss is listening, there's a ton of prep, lots of prep. There's no prep. No, I've been doing this for so long that if I walked into the booth, I didn't know who any of the horses were. You could hand me a program and the gate was opening, I'd call the race. I've never been I know there are a lot of announcers that put a lot of research in and they do the color coding and all that. I've just never done that. I've never tried to memorize. My thought on memorization is I've got 13 on a typical race day. I've got 12 or 13 horses wearing number 1. why try to memorize? Because what if I'm not looking at a program, I start calling sixth race number one mixed into the fifth race field. So I've never bothered with that. One of the things that I've always been comfortable with in my entire life, whatever job it is that I don't take myself or the job too seriously. I am not the best announcer in the world. I make mistakes. I'll get tongue-tied once in a while. But when those things happen, I start laughing. Even in the middle of a race call, I'll start laughing at myself. I don't get worked up over it. I don't get upset about it. I start laughing. I figure, everybody, their job, everybody makes mistakes at their job, and you have to laugh it off. So I think that trying to keep that atmosphere light a little bit also keeps me from being too uptight and worried about things. So I just pick up a program and I go. I call the race. So I wouldn't say it's effortless, but it's just that I'm very relaxed about what I do, and I don't take myself or anything too seriously.
I mean, that leads right into my question, but also that is great advice for, everyone in what industry you're in. That, some days we all make mistakes, and it's best just to laugh it off sometimes and keep on moving. But your style has been, quoted as being very calm and genuine. Is that something that you just developed on your own, or did you take it from like another announcer and seeing how they handled the announcing races?
I think when I started here, I was a lot more excited the first few race calls because I had only really listened to Roger growing up, and Roger Houston, of course, the Hall of Famer. And then I realized as I started announcing full days of races, I felt like my role was to give the listeners something different. So I consciously started out then very low key with my race calls, because you have Roger, who is, as everybody knows, and he takes pride in this, and he's built a career off of it. He calls every race like it's the Little Brown Jug, and that's his style. It's what he is known for. It's what a lot of people love him for. But I just felt like if Roger wasn't there, it was my job to be a little bit different. And so now if you go back and you listen to my calls while I was Roger's backup for 30 some years, my calls were a little more low key than they are now. I have picked it back up a little bit, especially with the bigger races. But I always felt like my job was to be a little bit different than Roger. And so that's kind of where that started and how that developed. As far as announcers that I listen to, I would say that the announcers that influenced me the most were John Bothy when he was at the Meadowlands, because he injected some comedy into it and he had fun with it, and Greg Young at Northfield. For about 10 years, I backed up Greg Young at Northfield. Whenever he took a day off, I went up there and called. And I really liked, because Greg also didn't take anything too seriously. He made jokes during race calls. He had a lot of fun with it. And so I'd say that those two were the ones that influenced me the most, in addition to, of course, Roger, who kind of taught me how to just be able to do this on a daily basis and not get bored with it, not get tired with it, and enjoy what you do. And I saw that from Roger.
You mentioned some great names there, but I want to circle back to Roger Houston. Taking over for a legend like that is not a small task, and I'm sure it might have been a little bit intimidating at the start, but did you feel any pressure stepping into that role, and how did you try to stay true to yourself?
I absolutely felt zero pressure taking over for Roger, and that's for one reason, and that's that I came up to the same booth that I'd been coming up to for decades. I came up to look at the same track, have the same view, calling the same horses, and being listened to by the same people that I'd been listened to by for 30 years, 30 plus years, because I was here. Had I gone to the Meadowlands or to Yonkers or to somewhere else to take over for somebody else, then I might have felt a little more pressure. But when you're doing the job and you've been doing the same job, I would call races here maybe 15, 20 days a year. And so I was just walking into the same booth in the same situation that I'd been in for all those years. So it really, honestly, did not faze me one bit. But again, that's because I was walking into the same place. Had I gone somewhere else, I probably would have been a little more intimidated. But this was a very comfortable situation to come into.
So you've called now thousands of races at the Meadows, and some really interesting ones, because you guys get a lot of visitors on your track of the deer kind, also some other interesting ones. But along with the races, is there any interesting race calls that you've called that stand out, or just ones that are significant that meant a lot to you calling a race?
Well, I always go back, and I've told this story a few times before, but I'll go back to it again. It's one of the most potentially embarrassing race calls of my life that could have been, but wasn't. It was the first year that I did the Adios. So it was the COVID year, 2020. I took over for Roger in the fall of 2019, and that year. Mike Wilder, local driver, won the Adios with Catch the Fire, and it was a very close finish. And I gave my call all the way to Mike Wilder. Mike Wilder winning the Adios, and people were giving me compliments after the race saying, wow, that was great that you called the right one, even though that horse was flying on the outside. I never saw the horse on the outside. I was so focused on the horses battling on the inside, which was Wilder and whoever was down on the inside with him, that Chief Mate, and it was Scott Zeron driving, Chief Mate was absolutely flying on the outside, and he almost got there. And I never gave him a call because I honestly was so focused on the inside, I never saw him. Now, it worked out perfectly. Now, let's fast forward a few years and come back to a couple of weeks ago. First off, I get to be reminded of my near miss on my Adios because Chief Mate now races here every week for the Dirk Simpson stable. A couple of weeks ago, for the first time in as far as I can remember, I called the wrong horse to finish. I called a horse on the inside, and this was literally about 3 weeks ago. Who burned me on the far outside with the exact same move? The exact same horse, Chief Mate. So about 3 weeks ago, if you go back and watch one of Chief Mate's wins from a couple of weeks ago, I absolutely did not call him because the same thing happened. And I even said it as soon as they crossed the wire. I said, well, he finally burned me. It took 6 years, but the horse finally burned me. And it's just funny that it had to be the exact same horse making the exact same move.
I remember you telling me that story on Adios Day. I thought that was hilarious. And I think it's so ironic that now he races every week at the Meadows. So it's kind of like a constant reminder.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, let's talk a little bit about fans and how you engage with them. When you're calling a race, how do you kind of balance what you're saying to grab the attention of not only casual bettors, but fans who are coming for the first time and don't really know what's going on or what horse racing is? How do you balance out your vocabulary and what you're saying so it can kind of appeal to everyone?
Honestly, I guess I'm really not that good at doing that because as I said, I started coming to the races regularly when I was in college. And so, of course, I was allowed to bet. So first and foremost, I consider myself a handicapper. I've done everything in this business. Started out as a bettor and handicapper, got into announcing, got into doing the TV stuff. And then I trained for 10 years. Then I worked for the Racing Commission for 13. And through all that, I was doing TV broadcasting. So I have pretty well-rounded education in the sports, so to speak. But I really, if you ask me first and foremost what I consider myself, I do consider myself a handicapper. And so when I call races, may not be that good at times, but I'm a handicapper. But when I call races, I really call races for the regulars, for the handicappers. I will sometimes call a horse that you may not see, that isn't necessarily going to hit the top three, but yet I will give the horse a big call if I see a move in the stretch. And that's mostly for those regular players to say, hey, watch what this horse just did. You might want to play him next week. Watch him back next week. So sometimes you'll see me give a big call to a horse mid-stretch that may only finish fifth, but that's a handicapping. That's the handicapping part of my brain kicking in. I'm always looking for those horses that maybe didn't get the best of trips. So yeah, sometimes I may not call the races for the casual fan or for the casual person that comes out. I do try to be more cognizant of that on, say, a Friday night. We have a bigger crowd. We have a couple of Friday nights where we bring in some really big crowds and we have some other promotions going on. And those nights I do realize that the person out there isn't here every day. And so I'll try to be careful to mention things such as starting gate's in motion. It's going to stay in motion right through the start of the race. So this is your last chance to get your plays in. I'll try to keep more up on things like that. But yeah, if there's one area where I'm not quite as good at most of the time, it is for what I would say for the person who maybe is here for the first time.
That's awesome. That's something that you don't really think about is like how you kind of shift your calls for newer fans and, who's actually attending the races that day. But I want to talk a little bit about, fans and bettors and horse players now betting online and our industry and wagering now shifting to more of an online platform. How do you think the role of the announcer has changed with that? And what have you done to kind of gear towards that online betting and how you guys, attack those wagerers on horse players?
Well, again, I'm trying to really target what I do for them. I'm trying to point out long shots. I'm trying to point out horses that I think could add some value, horses that may not have raced well this week, but look for next week because of the way the trip worked out. I do try to really pick up on those things. And I've actually gotten some messages over the years from handicappers saying, hey, that was great that you spotted that 8 that was locked in, but I'm not happy that you did that because you told everybody and now everybody sees it. And that actually, I kind of laugh when I see that. It means I'm doing my job well, but some of those regular players that they're looking for, those horses that nobody else spots, here I go blab it out to everybody on the air. I think the role, though, has changed in that a lot of the regular players, they'll reach out to me via email, via Twitter, or X, I guess it is now. And so I will communicate a lot of times in between races. That's what I'm doing. I'm going back and forth with people on Messenger and things like that. So it kind of becomes more individualized in a way. We've got those regular players. They can reach out to me. Some of them have my cell phone number. I get texts, I get messages during the races. And so when you hear that music between races, I'm not just sitting here doing nothing. A lot of times I'm communicating back and forth with specific bettors, asking me specific questions. And I do enjoy that during the day. It kind of makes the day go a little faster too.
I think that type of communication is so important, especially for our casual bettors, just to have that type of relationship, keep them engaged with the professionals and keep that conversation going so, they can stay interested and know what's going on. So I think that's so great that you stay open and transparent with them. Stepping aside from bettors, how have you seen racing and the fan experience evolve and change as a whole?
It's such a different sport than it was when I got here. Like I said, I started here in 1987. I got to see the heyday or the end of the heyday of Grand Circuit Week, where all of our big stake races were lumped in one week and the big stables would ship in and they'd set up for the week. So I'm glad I got to be around for that and experience that. It's just so very different now. It's really hard to compare. I do like that our handle is better now than it used to be, but it used to be before the days of OTBs where the only place you could get and the only place you could see the races was here. I'd look outside during the race card and I'd see a couple thousand people on a Sunday night. And that's not the case anymore because people can bet from home. But again, as I said, now those people that were outside on the apron level years ago, they weren't able to communicate with me. Now I can communicate with people right through my keyboard during the races. So there is that. It has changed, but you have to accept the changes and figure it's going to keep changing over the next 10, 20 years as well and just adapt. So it's anybody that looks for it to be the way it used to be. What in the world, any other sport, any other business, what is the way it used to be? Not much of anything is the way it used to be. So you just have to adapt and move forward.
Absolutely.
So you work with so many of the horsemen and women at the Meadows. What's something you want the fans to know that they might not realize that what it takes to actually get a horse behind a gate for racing?
I think a lot of people, I remember years ago, people would say, oh, they run the same horses every race. And so I always laughed at that one because, once I got involved in the other side of the sport where I learned how to train and got my trainer's license and everything, and then you realize how much work goes in. I just wish more people could see, and I know that we do a lot of things like this around here where we take people over to the paddock and we give them rides in the starting gate. That is just so critical for the sport, for people to see that side of it. Then they start to gain a little more of an appreciation. Years ago, we're talking back in the 90s when I was the PR director here, I used to run a thing for a full day called Racing Expo, where we'd bring people in, they'd meet some trainers, they'd meet the handicappers, they'd meet some horse owners, and they'd have sessions with all of those. And I can't tell you how many owners we ended up getting out of those full day experiences. They'd get jog cart rides around the track. We just would set up a full afternoon of morning and afternoon for them. And they would get to see the other side of the sport, the inner workings of the sport. And it was so critical. And there's some people that we got involved in that 30 years ago that are still owners here today. And that was their first exposure to it was from a program like that. So I think those types of things are critical because people really just don't understand what it takes. And they also don't understand that even though it's more expensive to get involved now than it was 30 years ago, it's still more affordable for the average person than thoroughbred racing as far as getting involved in ownership. And of course, the stable, Anthony McDonald, his group, and other fractional ownership groups have done a fantastic job. And they've kind of taken that racing expo theory that I had years ago, and they kind of do that on a different basis. But that's what it really takes, is just to get people out, get them involved, and show them that this is still affordable.
You've seen so many sides of harness racing, like you've mentioned. You've come across so many extraordinary horses, trainers. What are some of those horses or moments that are unforgettable to you and that you'll take with you forever?
Wow, that's a good question. The Adios every year, whether it was me calling or Roger calling me, the Adios is always just a great time. Going back to my years as an owner, some of those races stick out. Sometimes the losses more than the wins. I announced and worked at county fairs. I worked for the State Racing Commission for 13 years, and I was in charge of PR for the fairs. And I really love doing that. I love the travel. And I think it's not so much the individual races or anything like that, but it's the lifelong friends that I've made, the people that I get to work with on a daily basis. And that's really what I take from this sport. It's the people that I've gotten involved with, the people that I've gotten to know. And like I said, it's just been a great experience. And I plan to stay here till I retire, hopefully. and we'll see how much longer that is. But it's just been a great experience. And I'll say this, when I came back here full time 6 years ago, I left a job that I'd been working full time for 20 years because I was working 20 years at the college while I was working here part time still. And when you leave a job that you were at for 20 years, you kind of wonder in the back of your head, am I making the right move? And I can honestly say, and this sounds like BS, but this is the absolute truth. In 6 years of being back here full time, I have never once gone home and said I had a bad day at work. And that is a tribute to the people that I work with and to the sport itself.
That's amazing. Well, I have to bring this up because some people might not know this about you, and I was surprised to know this, but you are also a bowling coach, right?
Yes, this is my 9th year. I coach college women's bowling at St. Vincent College. Built a program from the ground up, and it's been an enjoyable experience because, as I say, I get to spend my life at racetracks and bowling alleys. When I was a kid, two of my favorite things in the world were to go to the racetrack in the summer and spend my winters in a bowling alley. And I get paid to do both. I mean, who gets that out of life? Who gets to do their two favorite things and get paid for them? So I really enjoy it. And like I said, build a program from the ground up, an NCAA women's program. And I enjoy the recruiting aspect. I enjoy the coaching quite as much as I some days, but I do enjoy it. And the team has been successful. We've had the highest winning percentage in the NCAA for the last 5 years, and the team has been very successful for a small college level, and I love doing it.
That's always super cool.
If you love your job, you never work a day in your life. So
Exactly
I think
right.
you amplify that to the max. But for the young fans who might want to get involved in maybe not just race calling, but also just working in harness racing as a whole, what advice would you have to give them?
Reach out to somebody involved in the sport. Most people are more than happy to accept free help when they can. And one thing I've noticed that people of my now aging generation, we're willing to show people what we do, because I think all of us realize that the sport doesn't have as many people involved in it as it used to decades ago. And so any chance we get, and really, again, I worked at a college, I taught, and I worked in athletic administration for a lot of years. So I worked with a lot of college students, and my advice is always try to shadow somebody, just get involved, reach out. You're not going to get anything to happen if you just sit there and look at your phone. You've got to be proactive. So if you want to get involved in horse racing, reach out to somebody who is and ask questions. Hey, I would like to get involved as a caretaker. I would like to learn how to train. I would like to learn how to be a driver. I would like to get involved in racetrack management. Somebody out there will be willing to talk to you and give you some advice and connect you with the right people and help you to make that happen. I can say that you had a guest on your show when you were here during Adios Week, Kevin Plaucha, and that's exactly what Kevin did. While Kevin was in college, he reached out to me, and he and I started talking, and he wanted to get involved, and he ended up connecting with some other people, which was NahooPicks.com, Mike Probosi, and got an opportunity to start publicly handicapping. And then he started coming in and working on our show and helping us out on big race days. And so it can still be done. You can still start in that area and work your way up the ladder and get involved in the sport.
We love Kevin. We all are big fans of Kevin. Well, let our fans know, how can they connect with you, follow you on social media, get your picks? Where can they find you?
So my picks are posted daily on the Nahoo Picks site. That's North America Harness Update, NAHUPicks.com. Mike Probosi and his group, they run a really nice operation there. They put picks up from racetracks all across the country. Mine are on there for the Meadows, and so are Kevin's. On Twitter, just look up my name. I believe it's at Meadows _ ANNC, or no, it's right. It's Meadows _ TV, Meadows _ TV. So that's where you find me on X, and you can message me through there as well. So again, it's a sport where you can connect with people, and you should. If you have any questions about the sport, reach out to people like you that do this for a living, and people like me that do this for a living. We're always willing to talk to people about what we do.
Absolutely.
Well, we thank you so much for joining us, Jeff. But before we let you go, we have to throw you into the hot seat. It's a quick little segment we do, just some questions to get to know you behind the microphone and a little bit more about who Jeff is. So I'm going to kick it off. If you could have any celebrity guest announce a race with you at the Meadows, who would it be?
Al Michaels. I would say Al Michaels. I think he's the gold standard in broadcasting. So Al Michaels.
All right. So if you had to delete all of the apps on your phone, but 3, what 3 apps would you keep?
My Fitbit. Wow. Let's see. Probably the weather, and the one that allows me to access the DVR and watch my TV shows.
Super important.
Very.
If someone gave you $1,000, but you had to only spend it at the dollar store, what are you buying? What are you stocking up on?
Mountain Dew.
Oh my gosh.
That makes me think of the movie.
Got to stay hydrated and caffeinated.
Oh boy.
A lot of sugar.
No. I go with a 0. Sorry, I should have specified Mountain Dew 0.
I was going to say.
Got to be healthy. I mean, I got to stay healthy.
All right. So have you ever earned a nickname? And what is it, and how did you earn it?
No, I haven't. So nope, and I don't need one. I'm fine.
We need to come up with one now.
Well, that's our job now. We have to come up with one.
It's something with Mountain Dew.
All good.
Mountain Dew, bowling, race calling. We'll have to brainstorm that.
Yeah, take your time. Take lots of time. Yeah.
No, we can just ask AI. They'll come up with plenty.
Oh boy. All right, last question. This is my favorite. If you and Chris Gooden switch roles for the day, for those of you who don't know, Chris Gooden is the track photographer at the Meadows. If you and Chris switch roles for the day, which task would each of you struggle with the most?
I would have a better time of it than him, because years ago, actually, I did a lot of photography. And so that was one of my things. When I first started college, before I moved into the communication major, my first semester, I was a photography major. So I think I would have a hell of a lot easier time stepping into his job than he would be stepping into mine. Where I would have the most trouble is that I'm limited. I have a few tattoos, not nearly as many as him, so I would be very deficient. I don't have the one tattoo that Chris has that starts here and goes to his toes. So that's where I'd have trouble.
Yeah. Chris knows all the horses on the drivers. I think he would just struggle getting them out at a fast pace.
Yeah.
And swearing. I think he would have a problem swearing.
Well, I have a button over here too, so that's okay. Yeah. Not easy sometimes.
Oh boy. All right, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. This has been incredibly insightful. I hope that some of the fans can learn a little bit more about you and announcing races and are excited to get involved if they want to.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks for listening, and thank you to the Standardbred Breeders of Pennsylvania for sponsoring Hot to Trot. We'll see you next time.